Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, note investor. Scott Carson here. Excited to be here with you today. Today, I thought I would dive in and make this an AI episode. No, I'm not going to put me some funky image, me dancing like an elf or anything like that, or me running through the streets. I thought I would ask AI, specifically Gemini, which is with Google's AI, what are the 20 most frequently asked questions by note investors? Now, some of these you've already heard, but I thought since so many new people are wanting to get in the note world these days because it's a great place to be, it's the sexy side of real estate. I thought I'd dive in these questions and ask the questions that are different this year than what maybe we've seen in the past. Um, no, I didn't go in there and tweak the questions up or anything. I simply asked very simple question for you guys to see. All right. And let me pull it up here so you guys can see. So I went and asked, it's very, very simple. I said, what are the 20 most frequently asked questions when it comes to buying or investing in notes? All right. And it gave me a kind of a breakdown of stuff. Note investing is buying the debt rather than the physical property. It's often called paper investing. All right, because you're acting as the bank. The questions shift from property maintenance to legal rights and borrower behavior. So it's a little bit different owning the note, owning the paper, than owning the asset. I always say the pen is mightier than the hammer. So here are the 20 most frequently asked questions when it comes to note investing that you want to pay attention to. Now, the great thing about this, guys and gals, is I've been teaching this for, golly, hard to believe, 17 years. And these are very, very common questions. Doesn't change that much. There's a few that are a little bit different off, but let's dive into it. Go first. So the first thing is strategy and basics. What is a real estate note? All right. Well, a real estate note is a promissory note secured by a mortgage or deed of trust. You are buying the right to collect future payments from a borrower. It's an IOU, basically. Okay. You're buying that IOU from the bank or the lender. That makes you the lender. No, you don't need a license to buy notes in most states. Most states, if you have a third-party servicing company that covers is who's licensed to collect debt in that state covers. There are a few states like Maryland, Georgia, Washington State, Oregon that do require you to have a mortgage broker's license if you're buying that states, but I just don't buy in those states. Okay. Number two, what is the difference between a performing and non-performing note? Performing means the borrower is just doing that. They're performing, baby, paying on time. All right. Non-performing means they have defaulted and are basically means they're more than 90 days behind. And you are buying the debt at a deep discount to either A, fix the loan, that means work with the borrower, as I say, rehab the borrower, or foreclosing on the property because you're buying that debt at a discount. The borrower still owes the full amount due. You're buying that debt at a discount below market value. So if you foreclose, either A, you're going to sell it at auction, make a profit, or B, take the property back, fix it up and sell it, rent it, owner finance it again if you want to. There's also a division called scratch and dent loans, S&D. You'll see this. These are loans where the borrowers are basically paying on time. There may be something off on the paperwork. Maybe the borrower didn't disclose something. Maybe there's a signature or disclosure that didn't get signed. The borrower maybe is constantly running like 1 month behind and gets caught back up. Those are scratch and dent loans. You don't get the big discount that you would with a non-performing note. Um, and you're not going to pay, should not pay full value like you would on a performing note in a lot of cases. Okay. Now, number three question, how much money do I need to start? This is the number one question I get from people who reach out to me at talkwithscottcarson.com to book a call. And the answer to that is it all varies. You can buy partials, which means like buying a year of payments, 12 months of payments, and paying 10 months of payments for 12 months of payments. That's our buddy Tom Henderson's favorite part. It's going to get you a 20% return. And you can do that for as little as like 5,000 to 10,000, even less than that in some cases. Depends on the mortgage balance. Okay. While full residential notes typically range from 30,000 to half a million. The least we've ever paid for a non-performing note was $7. Okay. The most we've ever paid on an individual note was 1.1 million. Okay. So that's something that all over the place. On average, we like to tell folks get started somewhere between $30,000 to $50,000 individual little small notes. You know, other states besides Texas, California, Florida. It's not saying you can't buy smaller balance notes in those areas. You can. Just keep in mind you want to know the foreclosure time frames and what's going on in that with you. Number four, do I own the property? This is the number one mistake that most people make coming into the note business. Well, I'm going to buy the note, I own the property. No, you do not own the property, you own the lien. You only get the property if the borrower defaults and you complete a foreclosure or cash for keys to give money for the borrower to walk away, where you've got to evict the tenant or evict the owner of the property. You just because you bought the note doesn't mean you own the property. Big difference. You have to know the difference between the note balance and the property values and go from there. Okay, that's one big mistake that a lot of realtors make or fix and flippers when they get out business. They're evaluating for the property and they fail to realize no, they've got to wear their banker's hat. You're owning the note, not the property. You got to go through that legal process of foreclosing, and it's different in every state. Texas is fast; you can do it foreclose in basically 21 days, all the way to like New York, which can take you 3 years or 4 years or 5 years to foreclose. What is a partial? A partial is selling or buying a specific number of future payments, the next 60 payments instead of the entire 30-year loan. And partials are really the most overhyped part of the note investing side. You're never going to buy a partial by buying a note from a bank. Now, you could buy a partial on an owner finance note, or if an investor buys a bank originated note and they are a private investor that owns it. Now, I'm a private investor. I don't buy partials. I like to buy the whole note for the most part. But say what a common theme is buying, if you're going to buy 60 months of payments, we'll give you 40 months or 48 months of payments for the full 60 months to figure out that yield. Okay. So, like I said, Tom Henderson, a guy in Dallas, made it very famous. I'll give you 10 months for 12 months. Pretty easy speasy to figure that out. You're getting a 20% return, cash and cash. You hold that note for 12 months. You give the investor 10 months of payments on the front end side. You get it for the full 12. The math is the next part to it. Yields and values. What is a good yield for a performing note? Most note investors target 9 to 12% for performing notes, and much higher, usually 20% or greater for non-performing notes. And that's right on track. Where do you find 9 to 12% returns is the next question people ask me for. You can find those on notes that were once non-performing that are now reperforming. You can find those on hard money loans, mezzanine loans. We're even seeing interest rates at that 7, 8%. You can buy a basically a performing note at a bit of a discount in some cases and get that 8% or greater return. All right, we see it. It happens. It's available out there. That's a pretty good yield for a performing note. Why is a non-performing note a higher yield? Well, you're buying at a bigger discount, and you got more work to do in either rehabbing the borrower or foreclosing and looking to rehab the property or sell the property at the auction. Number 7, what is the investment to value? ITV is that we see these on different spreadsheets and things like that. Tapes, we'll call that. We'll get into it. Investment to value, it's the ratio of what you paid for the note versus what the property is worth. And usually investors are going to, and it says on here, usually want an ITV of 65% or less for safety. That's a good point, especially buying a non-performing note, 65% of value. Yeah, that's an okay aspect of things. I want to make sure not just ITV, you got to look at IT balance, ITB, investment to balance. If a house is worth 100,000, great. 65,000 can be a good deal if they owe 100,000. But if they owe 65 and you pay 65 for it, you have nothing to foreclose on. There's no guarantee you're going to get that property back at the foreclosure auction. If somebody outbids you, you're not going to make much. So keep that in mind. ITB and ITB versus ITV. Number 8, what is unpaid principal balance? You'll see this UPB, the actual amount the borrower still owes on the loan, regardless of what you have paid for the note. The unpaid principal balance, UPB, that does not mean payoff, okay, or legal balance, okay? Unpaid principal balance, that's what you usually buy off of. Now, in these cases where you're buying notes that may have a ton of equity, or they owe a lot less on the property, you may be paying not off of unpaid balance, but off of legal balance in some cases, okay? Commercial, don't be surprised if you're buying a non-performing note at full UPB because there's a large default rate or a large legal balance, okay? Number 9, how do I calculate my return? Easiest thing is to use a financial calculator like the HP 10B2, Hewlett Packard, to find the internal rate of return based on the purchase price and monthly payments. There's a lot of apps that you can use on your smartphone. These days, you can actually just type all the information into your chat GPT or some sort of AI, and it'll give you the yield on that stuff, okay? Or the IRR, internal rate of return. Number 10, what is a tape? Is this like your CD tape, your best hits that you gave your love back in high school? No, 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 no. That's not the greatest hits. Okay. A tape, it's literally a spreadsheet sent by a seller, usually a bank or hedge fund, listing dozens or hundreds of notes for sale at once. They will give you like 40 to 50 columns of all the different details of the borrower's information, the FICO score, payment stream, details of the note, address, mailing address, borrower's name, co-borrower's name, social security number times loan number, servicing number, interest rate, payment, PITI, all that good stuff, ARM, adjusted rate mortgage, all those different things. Um, the more the merrier, especially from a banker hedge fund. This is going to be at least 40 columns. From a private seller, you still need to get all that information as best you can to determine, especially if it's an owner finance note. Okay. I like buying institutional debt from banks because it's going to be cleaner loan file that I'm buying, along with you're gonna get a lot more information easier in a tape than you would from a private seller who's self-servicing. Due diligence. Checking the deal. Is it a deal or is it a dud, as I like to say? Now, how do I check the property condition without owning it? You're not going to get into your inspection reports. You're not going to be able to get inside the asset most of the time if it's not listed for sale. So note investors use a BPO, it stands for broker price opinion. This is where we farm this out to a local real estate agent, and they drive by the property. They take some photos without alerting the tenant to get an idea of exterior condition. Like I said, I don't know interior condition, but a broker price opinion. It's not an appraisal, but it's a whole lot cheaper. You have to judge, what's going on with the property. Now, if it's a vacant property, could they get into the property? Well, they can peek into it most of the time. If it's vacant and a HUD, there may be a HUD key, a master HUD key that they can use to get into it. If it's listed on the MLS, there you go. Then they can go inspect the property like a normal listing. What is a title report in note investing? Okay. It ensures that there are no IRS liens, unpaid property taxes, or senior mortgage that could wipe out your investment. Okay. Here's the thing, it's going to tell you about everything that's on the title report. Like I said, taxes, mortgages, liens, any other things that associate with that property, maybe a water bill that's been around outstanding and stuff like that for you. So check to see how much the property tax are. It's not a full title aspect, okay? And really, what we call in note investing, you don't need to get a full title report that goes back to when that property was originated. Most of the time, if you're buying an existing note, you're going to buy what's called an O&E report, an ownership and encumbrance report. You want to make sure you will probably do a two-owner report where it goes back to two borrowers, two owners of the property to see, because if a property has been financed traditionally with a bank loan and you're buying that note, well, guess what? 9.5 times out of 10, that bank required clear title before they would fund. So that's why you don't need to do a title report, which can cost you 2 to 3 times what a O&E report is. So if you need to order a BPO or an O&E, you can reach out to me directly and we can order those for you. Okay. A BPO may cost you 125 to 150. A title report may be 85, 100, 125, depending on where the property's location is and what's all going on with that property. Okay. How do I know the borrower's payment history? Very great question. You request a payment string or servicing notes from the seller, see if they have missed payments in the last 12 to 24 months. This is a very important thing. If somebody is self-servicing, where they're not paying a third-party company to collect payments on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. Now, servicing may cost $15 to $35 for performing out, maybe 50 to $100 a month if it's non-performing. Servicing is very important because it's a third party collecting information, not Bubba servicing his own note. All right. Nothing wrong with Bubba. We love Bubba. But what I'm saying is it's good to have a third party that sends you over in the forms. You can see when payments are made, what month it was applied to, all that good stuff. So you're going to always ask for servicing notes, updated payoff. If you don't get the servicing notes and payment streams, don't buy the note. Okay. And I would not just say, oh, here's a copy of canceled checks. No, I'm going to want to see on a bank account when those payments came in if it is self-serviced. All right. But if you're going to own or finance a property, put it with a servicing company. It will save you so much more money and make that note much more valuable. If you're going to buy a note that's not serviced, you got to reduce your bid. Don't pay full value. Okay. Number 14, what are collateral files? Collateral files, it's the original physical documents, the note and the mortgage that you must physically possess or have stored in a vault to prove you own the debt. All right. And that's going to be basically the old loan file. Okay. This is an example of a loan file, a collateral file. There's more to it than just the original mortgage. There's also the old title report, the appraisal, the original loan application, What you need to have though is you need to have the mortgage, the deed of trust, the original copies of that stuff, or a what's called a lost note affidavit, and assignments, which shows the transfer of the mortgage if it's been bought and sold. Okay, that leads to number 15. The number question: what is the chain of assignments? This is the legal paper trail assignments of mortgage showing the loan moved from the original bank to you without any break. So if the note's been sold 4 times, there needs to be 4 assignment of mortgages and something called an allonge attached to it as well, which is just an endorsement. Um, I'm going to require that those all have been recorded, or they're all there that I can see them, so that I can record them all. If a assignment is missing, we don't have a clear chain of assignments, I'm not going to disclose on that deal until we have that cleared up. And most sellers, they're not going to force you to fund on that deal until they've provided clean chain of assignments, which gives you actually the paper trail to be able to foreclose so that you are the actual owner of that note. It's one of the most important things that if you have to foreclose, the judge is going to require. All right. As we get into operations management here, 16, do I have to call the borrower myself? And no, actually, no. In fact, most states require you to use a third party servicing that's licensed to collect money and handle tax reporting and things. So no, you should not be calling the borrower yourself. Do not do that. I know a lot of investors that come over from that creative side, working with foreclosures, and they want to talk to the borrower. No, you should not do that in the note business. You actually cannot talk to the borrower before you own the note. Now, you can look at servicing notes that the servicing can provide as far as outbound, inbound phone calls, what was discussed, those kind of things. You can't talk to the borrower before you own the note. That's a violation of fair debt collection practices. So rely on that third-party servicing to do that. Your servicer works on your behalf. So you tell them what you want them to do, what kind of exit strategies, what do you want to allow. They're going to reach out to you. Hey, the borrower reached out, especially non-performing. This is what they'd like to try to do. You can accept it, decline it, counter it. On a performing note, they're just going to keep collecting payments from the borrower and go from there. You may want to keep the servicing company in place instead of adding to your own on an existing performing note. On a non-performing loan, depending on the foreclosure process is, you may want to transfer it to your servicer or keep if it's about to go to foreclosure. You also got to realize that some servicers require minimum payment amounts per month. Like we have one note where the servicer requires $500 minimum payment per month. We only have one note with them, but we're keeping it because it's a 60-day foreclosure process. Okay. Others, like I bought two notes from a lender, and it was a servicing company that required $5,000 per month. Well, I was going to transfer the heck out of those two really quick without getting charged for that. So keep that in mind. If you need a servicer, reach out to me. We'll know several to provide that do stuff all across the country. What happens if they stop paying? Number one question. Here's the thing. Like I said, you work with your servicer to offer a loan modification, a deed in lieu. I prefer to call it a trial payment plan. Do never modify the loan immediately. Do a trial payment plan first. If they can't do that, then offer like a cash for keys, a deed in lieu. Or you can start the foreclosure process, and that's going to vary anywhere from like a $1,500 in Texas all the way up to like 10 grand in New York or more. It'll vary by state by state. Okay. Who pays the property taxes? Well, since you're the bank doesn't pay the property taxes unless the borrower stops paying them. And the reason you would pay them is to avoid the county foreclosing on your property to collect on their taxes. Okay. Now there are things you can do. You can reach out to the city, out the county, try to do a payment plan. But keep that in mind. You don't want to lose the property, especially if it's in a fast foreclosure state. So always find out, reach out. If you see that property tax is behind, reach out to the county and find out what's going on. The county is going to release information to you, the bank, the lender, more than they would some stranger. So simply say, hey, I represent the bank. I'm calling to find out taxes owed. What is a tax sale? If there is a tax sale, if there has been a tax sale, is there any redemption period in that state or not? So keep that in mind. Some states have a redemption period, other states don't. Number 19, pretty simple. Okay, what is cash or keys? We talked about like a deed in lieu. It's a strategy where you pay a defaulted borrower a small amount of money, like $2,000. We've paid $500. We've paid up to 10 grand before to move out peacefully, so you don't have to spend the money on a foreclosure cost or a legal foreclosure. My deed in lieu number is usually what's going to cost me to foreclose. Texas, it's $1,500 in 30 days. If you can't sign that and get out of the property in 30 days, I'm just going to foreclose. All right. Now, if there's a lot of equity, it may make more sense. We negotiated one recently with a lady. We paid $75,000 on cash for keys because there's a lot of equity. We didn't want the property to go to foreclosure where we would get outbid and not make as much. So we did 75 grand, gave her a big chunk of her equity, but there was a lot of equity on that backside. She was happy. We were happy. She got out of a bad situation. Go from there. Number 20, can I use my IRA, my individual retirement account, to buy notes? And yes, notes are favorable for self-directed IRAs because the interest income flows back into the account tax-free or tax-deferred. You cannot use your IRA with like Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, AG Edwards, these big investment Wall Street firms. Most of the time, they're not going to allow you to self-direct your IRA in real estate or notes. They allow you free to self-direct it into funds that they offer. So you need to go find a third-party custodian or trustee like Inspira, Equity Trust, Pensco Trust, and open an account with that or do a rollover your IRA into that, and then use the funds from your self-directed IRA at those accounts to then buy the note and the real estate. There's some forms you have to fill out depending on whether you're buying or lending out of your IRA for that, and that will vary on a transaction by transaction basis. So hopefully that helps. Those are the 20 most frequently asked questions when it comes to note investing. As always, if you want to learn more about note investing, go to weclosenotes.com. Keep listening to our podcast or sign up for our next upcoming workshop at notebuyingfordummies.com. That's notebuyingfordummies.com. We teach a regular 3-day workshop, sometimes online, sometimes in person. Just reach out to me and we can tell you what's available next for you. So go out, take some action, everybody, and we'll see you at the top.